Stumbling home, we don't know where we're going. Should've turned back hours ago. Out of our minds, I guess we're sleeping outside. You're still a good time, even in the cold.
Hello, welcome to Defender Adventure. We are Paul and Chrissy from the UK, and with our Land Rover Defender that we have called Sterling, we are travelling the world.
Guess we need a new plan. There's a motel a mile down the road.
I think the idea of going on this trip, for me, was exactly the same reason for going on the cycle ride in Sweden. The alternative means to me sitting at home. I'm just going to be sat at home trying to work out what I'm going to do each day.
Again, not the way he expected, well not expected, that he wanted me to. I thought another crazy idea.
We arrived back home in the UK in August of 2018 and we sat and listed the different steps, the measures we would have to take in order to make this trip a reality. There was obviously paperwork, obtaining visas, there was conversion works for the vehicle, we had to engage with a shipping agent, and probably most importantly, I had to overcome Chrissy's fears.
All the fears, it's all the unknown for me.
I would try and push her into explaining exactly what specific fears she had, and so we could see if we could deal with these. She listed obvious ones, I guess. She listed our safety, our personal safety was a big fear. What about if we got stuck, if we broke down?
Maintaining the Land Rover as well. Paul always had vehicles where he didn't maintain them. They were company vehicles, so they went in for services and it was all done for him. So I think I wondered if he'd know how to look after the vehicle.
What about if we got injured or had an accident?
I'm alright with a cut and a bruise. Anything serious, I wouldn't know how to deal with.
What about driving off-road? Would we be capable of doing that? Some of the countries we might travel through could get quite sticky at times.
Paul had never done off-roading, neither had I, and so it's all, if you get stuck, how do you get yourself out if it's just the two of us?
And so I said, okay, it would be irresponsible of us just to say we're going to go and do this trip and do it without any real preparation. So we booked ourselves on to a 2-day first aid training course, a Land Rover off-road driving course, and we booked ourselves into a 3-day bush mechanics training course. I found all of those courses to be really informative. I think we realised a number of things. On the first aid training course, the main thing I realised was that if one of us has an accident, it really needs to be Chrissy. I'm not sure I would want to be on the receiving end of her first aid. It wasn't overly special.
We went on a first aid training course for 2 days. Hopefully I can remember some of it.
we booked ourselves into a 3-day bush mechanics training course. How to deal with, maintain and look after the Land Rover whilst out in the middle of nowhere.
Bush mechanics training course, which I thought would be for Paul, but the guy that was doing it, Dave Gunning, he not insisted, but he wanted me to come along because there might be a time where Paul couldn't do something that I needed to do. It was Paul's birthday, so we had a little cake.
But she did learn a lot, as we both did, I think, on the bush mechanics training course. She was put to work.
And he got me changing a wheel.
Although at times it looked like she was taking a little break.
With him explaining, I had a better idea of how a vehicle runs.
But yeah, she's been officially made in charge of fluids, vehicle fluids. So checking oil levels, clutch fluid levels, power steering fluid levels, that's her task on a weekly basis.
I think Paul learnt a lot as well, and talking about tools, what tools you need to take, and making do with what you've got. If something happens, making do and trying to repair was a good learning curve. We had an off-road training course, which we went to Eastnor in the UK, and we drove through deep water, mud, slippery hills. At one point Paul had, I think he had opposite front wheel and back wheel off the ground. I was out of the vehicle at that time. I didn't fancy that.
And she did her fair share, and she was very, very good, I have to say. Got a bit scary for her on a couple of times and she bailed out, but on the whole, we did very well, I think. We learned a lot that day.
I think the training helped me, although I don't want Paul to rely on me if anything really major happens. But yeah, I think I felt more at ease, being a bit more prepared.
I was determined to keep identifying and addressing the fears that she had. I wanted her to want to do this trip as much as I did. I'm not sure that ever has been the case really, but certainly it seemed that she was becoming more comfortable with the idea of the trip as time went by.
I think the house will be put on the back burner. Still keep the land. I love the plot of land and the view, and do our travels first. Enjoy ourselves while we can.
I said to Chrissy that I would like to travel and to do this journey and not to be in any rush. I didn't want to put a time scale to things. I didn't want to say that we'll be back in 2 years' time or anything specific. I wanted to travel, take my time, enjoy our journey, and we agreed in the end that our journey would continue based on 3 criteria. Firstly, that we were enjoying ourselves. Secondly, that we were physically capable to do the journey. And thirdly, that we were mentally capable of doing the journey. I'm not sure how we define level 3 or point 3, but anyway, that's what it says. So I've said I would like to continue travelling until we get to the point where we're not enjoying it, or we physically can't do it for one reason or another. But I think I always felt that there will be a point, there will come a time when we can't do it anymore, when we do get physically incapacitated or mentally incapacitated. and I think would both then be happy to return to Scotland. I didn't particularly want to leave an open-ended start date for the journey, because there's always something will always come along that needs the journey to be put back. So I said we talked about realistic timescales for modifying the vehicle, for obtaining visas, for doing the training that we wanted to do, and in the end I think we came up with a date of April. In fact, it was April the 7th was the day that we ended up flying out of the UK. Vehicle had to be shipped a month earlier than that, so getting the vehicle ready really by the end of February was going to be quite a big challenge for us, given that it was now coming towards the end of August.
I had a little input, done little bits, and sewing. Paul done the main design.
Despite the small size of the Land Rover, we had a lot of modification works to do.
It's always nice to have more room, but you make do with what you've got.
Obviously, sleeping considerations. So we've got a pop-up tent on the roof. We have spare water tank and water pump. So we've got taps, outlet points at different locations. We've got an electrical system operated by solar. We wanted to put a fridge and food storage in. We wanted to be comfortable in the cockpit.
We have a designated bathroom. We've even got a toilet, but it's a toilet seat with legs that we can go and wander off and do your business.
Once we got our design together, we took our vehicle, it went away for 6 weeks, and we worked very closely with an individual that did a lot of the modification works for us. He designed storage units for drawers and raised the floor level. He spent most of his time on what I call the camping side of the modifications, and then we took the vehicle to a garage to do the vehicle modification, beef up the suspension for the extra weight that we put it on, that we had put on. But overall, I would say that we were very, very pleased with the way the vehicle looked when eventually all the work was done.
Paul was very keen on calling him Ox. Ox, of all names. It's because part of his registration is OX. But Paul was saying, yeah, because he's strong and he's going to look after us. I didn't like it, Ox. But then I thought of Sterling, the silver, and he's going to do a sterling job. There's a place in Scotland called Stirling. I like Sterling. He's going to do a sterling job for us.
I plotted a very rough route around the world, but our first decision was, do we leave the UK and head east, or do we head west? We decided eventually to go west. Canada and America we felt were safer options than Eastern Europe. If anything happened to us or the vehicles, to be somewhere where the language was the same, the culture was the same, would make sorting out any early stage hiccups a lot easier. We had, through research, come across a gentleman that lived in a place called the Prince of Wales Island in Alaska, southeast Alaska. He ran an oyster farm, and we'd learnt that he would take in people such as ourselves. He would provide accommodation and he would provide food, and in return you would assist him in running the oyster farm. and he lived in a float house in the ocean, on a float house in the ocean, and he would have, and he told us this, we Skyped with him and he told us that he had humpback whales swim past his house, he had sea otters, bald eagles, he caught fish most days for dinner, well, and lunch and breakfast, and it just sounded like such an adventure, and we asked if it would be possible to go and spend some time with him. He said it would be, but we had to be there for a period of time. It would take some time for us to be trained up in the way of things, he told us, and he didn't want us going all that way, him spending all that time working and training us, for us to leave after a week or two. So in the end we agreed we would be with him for 3 months. We agreed that we would meet with him in May 2019. So our original plan was to ship the vehicle to Vancouver, fly out to Vancouver, and then spend 2 or 3 weeks leisurely pace driving the scenic route from Vancouver up to a place called Prince Rupert in British Columbia, where we would catch a ferry that would take us out to the Prince of Wales Island. When we contacted a shipping agent and told him of our plans, he suggested that it wouldn't be the best of ideas to ship to Vancouver. He told us that the route to Vancouver was through the Panama Canal. It was the most expensive shipping option. It was most likely route to suffer with delays. His idea, his recommendation was we ship the vehicle to Halifax on the east coast of Canada, the shortest, cheapest option for us, and the inspections weren't so rigid and we wouldn't suffer the same costs as if we went to Vancouver. So we said okay, we would do that. This obviously meant that we'd now got a 4,000 mile journey from Halifax to the Prince of Rupert. But for me that was fantastic. We had a chance to drive across Canada and see parts of Canada that we wouldn't have seen. Once the vehicle was fully complete, we'd had the modification works done, we'd had the suspension works done, we'd had all the decorative finishes completed. We had 1 weekend left before we had to take the vehicle to Felixstowe to be loaded into a container. So at the end of that week we drove up to Yorkshire, went onto the Yorkshire Moors. My mother lives up there and we used that opportunity to show her the vehicle and to say goodbye to her, spend a bit of time with her before we left. But we stayed with her, we didn't really camp in the vehicle. So all we did really was drive the vehicle to Yorkshire, drive around Yorkshire a little bit and then come home again. What I found in the world of shipping is that everybody knows what they're doing except you.
Getting a good shipping agent is key.
There is a process. It seems to be confusing to me.
And we had to take it to Felixstowe.
But everybody else seems to know how it works.
We spent the last couple of days really cleaning it, because you have to ship your vehicle spotless of dirt, seeds, insects, and so he was spotless.
Unfortunately it poured with rain, and having cleaned the vehicle to within an inch of its life, we then ended up dropping it off slightly dirty. We hoped that wouldn't cause any problems with the Canadian customs, but yeah, we dropped it off, they received it with the fuel light on, and we handed the keys over and left the vehicle in their warehouse ready for loading in the next couple of days. So having dropped the vehicle off, our shipping agent informed us that we could go onto a particular website and track the progress of the ship that the container was going to be on. And we did, and we watched every day. We would look again, and we noticed that where we thought it would leave the UK and head to Canada, that it actually went the other way and headed over to Belgium. It got to a port in Belgium and stayed there for a day or two, and then it headed off again, and this time it went north, and it seemed to be going up and around to the top of Norway, and we were totally confused. In fact, we became a little bit anxious and contacted our shipping agent, only for him to explain that in Belgium our container had been taken off and put onto another ship, which was now on its way to Canada.
Yes, a teacher at the local primary school found out that we were doing this trip and came and asked us if we would kindly do a talk, which we were happy to do. They were around 10 years old.
It was quite an enjoyable experience, a little bit nerve-wracking. We gave a little talk about our cycle ride in Sweden and how that had led to the idea of travelling around the world. We talked a little bit about the works we'd done to the Land Rover. And once we finished talking, we asked if there were any questions.
Little Johnny, hand in the air, pipes up and says, where do you go to the toilet?
So we explained that sometimes we would be on campsites where they had toilets. Other occasions we would be in the wilderness and we would take a shovel and disappear around behind a bush or a tree.
And then this little lad goes, well, what about if there aren't any trees?
Well, then we will have to just drive up the road a little way until we can find some bushes or trees.
And then he says, well, what about if you're on a 100-mile bridge?
I didn't know what to say. How do you answer that?
But they were really good.
We got some really good questions, and we even got a photograph from the teacher with all the children that spelled out wishes for us on our journey.
Yeah, I was apprehensive.
I knew that by doing this trip that we would be away from family for an extended period of time. I did agree with Chrissy that we would return home every 9 months. That seemed to me a reasonable period. With modern technology nowadays, FaceTime, Zoom, it's not too hard to keep in touch with family. It's not the same as actually being with them, I know, but you can keep in touch.
Going to miss everybody.